Alright guys, Dokkan time, and Global is finally getting Toppo and this guy here that poses a lot. So, I decided to do a revision of his previous build as he has changed just a little bit, enough for me to actually redo his roll tips, and maybe a little bit of a slight suggestion to his build. But obviously, honestly, if you watched his other video, probably didn't change very much. But my opinion of him has definitely changed in the last several months. I do like Toppo. I think Toppo is fun. I think he's good. And I'm recording this at the very last second, as you can see on that time frame. So we're going to do a quick thing about this guy. I don't like the banner unit. I don't like Catopesra. I really don't. I don't find any use for him. I'm not even going to go through his entire shenanigans of a paragraph of of a passive here, because to me, he's just a straight up orb changer. His defense is mediocre, his damage is okay, and that's in a good scenario. He has a very convoluted and complicated passive because his entire usage and how he performs is completely dependent on which turn he is on. I would highly suggest you just keep him on first, third, fifth, seventh, and ninth turn, and if you go past that, and then he's just garbage. I don't like him. I don't like him at all. I really don't. My suggestion to you on how you should build him is just full dodge. Just full dodge, put the rest into additional, hope that he gets enough defense. He's a full dodge banner unit. I think he's just crap. I don't care for him. He's just an orb changer in my eyes, so I just wanted to get him out of the way because he doesn't deserve a whole video, in my opinion. So we're just going to move on. We're going to move on to Toppo. So with Toppo here, as far as his slot suggestions go, he hasn't really changed too much. He himself is once again still his best leader, but otherwise now you have LR Jiren and you have LR Tech UI Goku. I think those would be his best homes. Technically, Jiren can kind of be put into anywhere. He's a slot 1 tank. And I've found that he doesn't necessarily, hold on to his intro necessarily, but he still can be very good even if he's not on a full special pose. He's just dramatically different on a full special pose team. I didn't make a roll tip for a special pose team because there's still only like one special pose team, which is Jiren and Gammas and Gotankses, and you can throw on, oh yeah, and the LR Ginyu, and then you can throw on Jiren, but he's not a special pose, so that's just something to keep in mind. But anyways, as far as like his best slot position goes, slot 1, 100%, 110% is his best one, and then slot 2, he can do a little bit more damage, but otherwise in slot 1 is his best position. His best partners are, of course, himself, Jiren's, and the Pride Trooper unit. Those are going to be his absolutely best partners to see his performance increase substantially. But yeah, let's move on to his kit. As far as the 55% goes, I would just go full additional and then put in a defense orb. But before we get any closer, go any deeper into the builds, pretty much additional is going to completely eclipse the majority of his builds. As far as his 200% options go, he doesn't really have any 200% options, at least as far as global goes. If we switch over to the JP version, though, on JP, because of Jiren, Jiren is his only 200% that I would consider meta-wise, other than himself, of course. Other than Jiren and himself, there is no other 200% options for him. He's 170 everywhere else. So that is something to keep in mind. He's a special pose tournament of participant 170 leader, and then 200% for anyone on those categories, with Defenders of Justice, Space Traveling Warriors, or Final Trump Card categories. He greatly raises attack and defense for 1 turn. He does have an intro, which reduces damage by 11% for the rest of battle, and then guards all attacks for 3 turns. That guard is nice because you can flop him into positions, but it's not mandatory, because the guard is still there in slot 1 so long as you take 1 attack first. But you can only activate his intro if there's another 2 special pose or Defenders of Justice, which if you're rocking Jiren along with Toppo, and then Toppo himself, and then maybe Pride Troopers, you've already got it pretty much settled right there. Attack and defense 200 plus an additional attack 150 when performing a super, reduces damage received by 20%. The orb changes int keyspheres to rainbow keyspheres. This does still hurt the LR Gammas, but LR Gammas, other than on a special pose team, you're probably not going to really run them too much with this guy. You can, and it can do well. I'm just saying that sometimes, after a bit of team building, I kind of come to a point where I'm like, I don't really need the Gammas on the team. The Gammas help and are nice, but they do take up a lot of setup. He also is a special pose or Defenders of Justice category ally supporting unit with key +1 and attack and defense plus 30%. So he's constantly buffing the Jirens and Pride Troopers also. Plus an additional defense plus 50% within the same turn or receiving attack. Plus an additional defense plus 200% and guards all attacks as the first attacker in a turn. This is why he's a slot 1 unit. And then plus an additional attack and defense 100% when performing a super attack as the second or third attacker in a turn. I can tell you straight up right now that attack buff in the second slot, it's about a 1 to 2 million difference in damage. It does help quite a bit, but, you know, at the end of the day, he's still a tank in my view. He can transform. He can be activated when there's another special pose or Defenders of Justice category ally attacking in the same turn, starting from the 4th turn from the start of battle, or starting from the 6th turn. So it's one of the two. As far as his links go, as I pointed out on the roll tips, it's pretty much Pride Troopers himself, and then it will be Jiren. It will be Jiren at that point also. They're not all links. It's Tournament of Power, Fierce Battle, Shocking Speed, and Supreme Warrior. He will get much better. His best partner is the Pride Troopers, because the Pride Troopers are also supporting him. So that would be his actual defensively best partner, other than himself, of course. Which, with that in mind, let's move on to his transformation real quick. So as far as when he transforms, he now massively raises attack and then raises defense. Key +3 attack and defense 300, plus an additional attack 250 when attacking, plus an additional defense plus 100% when receiving an attack. Changes ink keyspheres to rainbow keyspheres. Guards all the time. Reduces damage received by 80% with each attack received. Damage reduction rate is -8%, no more than 60%. Nullifies Ki Blast super attacks at the character for the turn from which the character entry turn and starting from the character's next attacking turn. High chance of 50 of nullifying Ki Blast super attacks directed at the character. So with that all in mind, he also has an active skill, which massively raises his attack and causes ultimate damage to the enemy. And from there on out, all attacks become critical hits in battle. So this guy has actually full-on built-in critical, as long as you activate that active skill, which means it'll either activate on turn 4 to 5 or 6. There's no reason not to activate his active skill right away as soon as you get it. He just is better defensively. He's better offensively. There's just no reason not to. As far as his defense goes, these are like very old, but you know, with guard and damage reduction, 1.3 can actually stack up pretty well. Guard does help quite a bit, and this is not taking into consideration of like the massive amount of extra support you can get as a special pose team. This is why I was also saying earlier that Toppo on a special pose team is a completely different beast defensively wise, because of Gamma support, because of LR Ginyu support, because of all the huge amounts of supports on that team. His defense is like almost double, so just keep that in mind. Now, once he transforms, he's having similar defense, but a little bit less. The major difference is he's always guarding at this point now. And because he's always guarding, he will be doing just better damage, or he'll have a much better time. Now, the only thing that does suck is that the damage reduction does go down to 30% eventually. But in my experience, by the time you get down to that 30% damage reduction point, the fight's already over. So just make sure you use his active skill as like a final trump card at the end of the final phase. That's when you use his active skill. So let's go quickly over his builds again. 55%, go full additional, put in the defensive orb because he's a slot 1 tank. As far as double dupes go, once again, full additional. You can choose to put in crit. Some people don't want to put in crit. Some people don't want to put in dodge. This is back to the Vegeta thing. He doesn't need to get hit, but he does need to get hit 1 time when he's in base. So it's entirely up to you if you want him to do potentially some damage in base. But he has auto crits once he transforms. At that point, you know, it's up to you entirely. I would switch out these crit suggestions into dodge suggestions if you're okay with the dodge. I personally would rather go for the dodge, personally. But always go for the defense orbs and go always for additionals. As far as when he, you know, for a full rainbow, I think my music stopped. My apologies. As far as like his entire, you know, after he's transformed and everything, defense, additional, and dodge can be a choice. You can go ahead and go for a full extra amount of dodge if you so choose. In his transform state, dodge does help him because at that point, once you have the dodge in his transform state, he's actually able to avoid reducing his damage reduction. So dodge does actually help and is probably the best choice to give him because he's auto critting after using the active. You know, you want to just go with additional because he's just this absurdly crazy tank. And then just the leftover dodge can just potentially help you keep some of that damage reduction and maybe not even take some damage. So that's just something to keep in mind as far as going with dodge builds, is that you do have 2 different units to kind of work around. But if you're someone that doesn't believe that the dodge is necessary, then that's perfectly fine, and you just want to throw in the crit, then throw in the crit. That's entirely up to you. Personally, my personal preferred build would be full-on additional and just put the rest into dodge. I probably wouldn't give him more than 9 dodge just because of his base. In his base form, you know, he does need to get hit 1 time. He could potentially get caught in his base. And the only reason I say that is because his active only lasts for 3 turns. So literally turn 1 and turn 3, and that's it. And then after that, he does have to receive an attack to be able to get the guard. So that is something you do have to keep into mind, I believe. Plus an additional defense plus 50% within the same turn after receiving an attack. Plus an additional defense plus... Okay, I take that back. He just always has guard in first... Okay, so never mind. Dodge just doesn't hurt him. Dodge doesn't hurt him at all. So, I mean, that's only for that little itty-bitty bit of 50% defense to get hit. So, no, I take it back. Dodge is the way to go. You know, full additional and dodge is the way to go for this unit. That is what I would suggest. Good luck if you are summoning for Toppo. I think he's good, but I think you should be skipping the banner. I really do. I mean, we just got UI Goku basically yesterday. Not even a week ago, and it's too soon. And we have Worldwide Download Celebration in a couple weeks. Please save your stones. But if you're a spender, go for it, man. He's gonna be a fun unit to rock. He's gonna be fun. But anyways, guys, thank you for watching the video, and I hope you all have a good day and a good night. Let me know how you built him.